Yeah, so today's meeting, I wanted to make it, well, Mary had the good idea about it. When we used to be at another team, there was these pitch and dialogue classes. And when I was at another company as well, I think it was Realty One Group, we did this too, but it was always kind of weird and it didn't really feel that useful. What I like these pitch and dialogue classes to look like is, what are the common things people are saying to you in your everyday life is what I like to focus on first. Where someone says something like, hey, what do you do for work? What do you say back? Right? It shouldn't be, oh, I own a successful real estate company where I help buyers and sellers navigate the home buying process. Like it really should be like, what do you say? What do they say back? Do they not say anything back? What's, what path do you take? Do you say something? And it's good because this is more of a workshop versus a class. It's what's working, what's not working. Because I've had people say, oh, I said this. And we say, well, what do they say back? Well, nothing, but isn't that a good thing to say? And it's like, well, if they didn't say anything back and ask you more about what you do for work, then no, right? I mean, we want results, not just to sound cool. And I also like to do it for like common objections too. I like to start with, hey, when someone asks you, what do you do for work? What do you say? What do they say back? What do you say? But then what are some objections when you are meeting with your clients? And we'll go over that in a sec too. Like, someone says, hey, don't you think values are going to drop? What do you say back to that? I mean, do you have facts? Do you have data? Or do you just say, yeah, I think they're going to drop? And then your client disappears forever, or you say, no, they absolutely will go up. Well, it depends, right? So we'll start with, what do you do? What do you do for work? Like my neighbor asked me yesterday, and I just said, oh, I'm a full-time real estate agent.
I tell people I have 2 jobs.
Okay. And what do they say back? She said, I tell people I have 2 jobs. I said, what do they say back?
People then say, how's the market?
They do, right?
Uh-huh.
And what do you say back?
I say it's a little bit odd right now. I say that, in California, depending on the location, we have we still have low inventory. So in places where it's desirable to live, and there's a lot of places around here like Folsom, Roseville, Rockland, and you have a home that's pretty turnkey and ready to go, those homes are going really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I go, but if you have maybe a different part of the country, maybe their inventory is slowing down, but right now we don't have enough inventory. But at the same time, it's also harder right now for buyers because of the interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, it's kind of like a weird market. There are buyers out there. It's just harder for buyers right now because the prices are still staying high because there's not a lot of inventory, but the interest rates are still high. So
yeah,
and that's the conversation we have.
Yeah, even just saying that out loud a few times helps so much because it organizes your thoughts a little bit. I mean, yeah, because I kind of say the same thing. I say it's really weird right now. I've been saying this for.
I don't say it's bad. I don't say anything is bad or good.
Well, I've been saying that too for a while because I think
different.
I think there's a lot of people who will agree, even in 20. Yeah, let's do that.
Here, let me get it.
No,
you do that. No, I'm gonna get it.
Because I think a lot of people when they hear, that's smart. When you talk to them and you say, yeah, it's kind of a weird market right now. Even in 2021, I'd say rates are really low, and so people are getting just, record low interest rates. It's definitely cheaper to buy than to rent. That's what I was saying. But you're going to houses where there's so many offers that people are doing this, like the market hasn't quite caught up. And so as a seller, it's great. And it depends, right? Sometimes I kind of tailor it if I know, hey, this person probably owns their home, right? If I'm pretty sure they're a renter, I just say, there's a lot of, it's great because it's cheaper than renting. But there's so many people doing something called an appraisal gap where they're offering to come out of pocket the difference from what it appraises or not. I think that that's a bad deal. And so I always recommend my clients not do that. And there's a lot of houses out there where, someone might offer that. And so it's okay to miss out. There will always be another house. And whenever I've said that to people, I feel like they've said, oh, that's interesting because I've heard about these appraisal gaps. And I like that approach that there's always going to be something else available. I'd rather not get screwed over. Because I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, hey, I had an agent, but I would like to talk to someone else because they told me that if every house we need to offer at least, what did this one say? At least 15% over the list price and at least $10,000 appraisal gap.
Whoa.
And so if we don't have enough for the down payment and that, we might as well not look.
It's not 2021 anymore.
No, that was back in, actually that was in 2020 that they said that. And I was like, I disagree. If that happens and it's that competitive of a house, let's move on and find something else. If it's like the most perfect house and you absolutely want it, then sure, we'll try to figure out a way.
Yeah. I think I'm also learning to take my opinion out of it, meaning if somebody's ready to buy or sell, they are. Like, it's not me to convince them of what I think. If they can afford to buy and they find a house they love, great, let's support them in that. If they need to sell, which I have people right now that may need to sell, they need to sell.
Yeah. We do property management too, so you can always give them that option.
Right. And so they might have to rent it for a couple of years, but a lot of people want your opinion, but it is just that it's nobody knows for sure. A lot of people want to think that we like have this, we can see into the future and we have some secret.
Well, but you can still use data and stuff. Mary and I were talking the other day that it's like, sometimes people say, oh, values are going to drop. And it's like, okay, but I want to hear why. Everything should be a why. And so for me, it's, okay, if home values are this, the average home value in Roseville is $500,000, let's say. And if I put 3 or 5% down to qualify, let's just say conventional, I would need X amount of income. If that's over the area median income, then it doesn't make sense. Values will have to go down because that means every buyer would have to be way over the area median income. And so there's a lot of states where that's the fact, and that's why the value started to drop. But there's always, I like to tell people, especially if I know they own their home, that values are dropping for places that need a lot of work and updating because no one wants to spend that kind of money with rates where they're at. But yeah, Nate, what do you say when people say, what do you do for work?
I let them know that, I'm excited to share that I've gone from going healthcare to full-time real estate.
Yeah.
And it definitely sparks conversation.
Yeah.
He has lots of conversations.
So yeah, it's crazy. I have probably several conversations a day. They're very organic. They're very, like you said, they're very catered to people's situation. I talk to doctors, I talk to nurses. Some are investors, some are first-time home buyers. But yeah, I mean, it definitely goes a different direction every time. So it's not cookie cutter.
Which is good.
Similar to what you were saying, I always, when they say, well, how's the market? I say very unique. And just saying that brings questions. Well, why do you say it's unique? Or usually it'll bring up like, well, what about the interest rates? Something like that. And I say, well, what about the interest rates? Because there's people that refied and they're in these nice cush interest rates and they don't want to sell. And that's why we have a supply issue. Unless people have life events, they're typically not selling because they want to upgrade, because they don't want to give up that interest rate. But it doesn't mean it's not a good time to buy. It's always a good time to buy. But real estate, it's unpredictable. It's also a long-term investment, and you have to look at it that way. And I explain gaining equity over time. You can't expect to always go ahead, but in the long term, you will win if you treat it as a long-term investment.
Yeah. Like you shouldn't memorize what you're going to say, but you should practice a little bit so you're not totally like, I get red in the face if I get caught off guard. I'll really stumble over my words, but like I will always remember this guy in Yuba City. He wanted to become a pastor. He became a pastor, but he had this crazy stutter. I mean, but the thing was just that I don't know, not being super articulate, I felt like he grabbed people's attention so much more. And Mary and I were talking about
What
with
do you mean by
TikTok.
just being who he was?
Well, he had this stutter, and you would think, oh, you can't do public speaking because you can't talk clear, but actually it had the opposite effect. I think because he wasn't so perfectly well spoken, everyone was so much more drawn into what he's saying. And I think it's the same with like the TikTok videos Mary and I were talking about. And, Chase, when he kept posting all these videos. Finally, he accidentally posted one without editing it, and that one went viral with like 200,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And so I think people are looking for authenticity. And so, if you're not as well spoken, it's probably better, but also it's the tone of voice, right? Both of you said it in like the most even keel, normal tone of voice. You almost want to stutter a little bit over your words, not like you're nervous. I mean, you don't want to get commission breath and be like, oh, potential buyer. The market is the best I've ever seen.
You don't want to be overly confident to the point where they're like, you're not being genuine in what you're saying, and I know it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, everyone sees right through it. Yeah.
I wanted to add, I feel like this is, at least what I wanted to get out of this class. Can you guys hear us, by the way? Can you hear back here? I'm guessing yes. Nobody said anything.
Don't.
Something that I wanted to get out of it is it's not a pitch class. Like I'm not pitching to anybody, but it's learning how to talk without having to search constantly for the right words. So just having conversations between us about the market or topics of interest, like learning how to talk to each other and just having that knowledge base. With education, we can talk maybe about different topics like insurance or something, but just having that knowledge. I know, not today, but like going forward, I would like that. Like just learning having that knowledge base and having it just kind of at the ready, because we're always talking about it. We're always, maybe you're not talking with clients, maybe you don't have a lot of clients right now, but you talk with us or you practice with yourself, and then you could take it to social media or you have it,
I totally agree with that.
Natural.
If you make it a conversation rather than a pitch,
Yeah.
It's a pitch, but if you ask the right questions, it'll guide the conversation, and you want to let it flow that way. You want them to speak 60% of the time.
Yeah.
So you get a good feel of where they're at, and then you could serve them where they're at.
Well, and like what you said, I think when you say something that piques their interest a little bit, like, oh, the market's very unique, and they ask you a question, now they're giving you permission to share.
Mhm.
But then, of course, you then need to take it a step further and ask them, because you never know. Like Chanel referred a guy to me that I thought was looking to buy a second house, or I thought they were just looking to buy the guy in Orville, your former coworker. I thought he was looking to buy a house somewhere else and upgrade. And I just kind of asked him like what their situation is. And he seemed a little standoffish. And then I just kind of kept digging with questions. And then we just got talking about like how he wanted to buy something and rent it out, but he didn't want to rent it out to anyone because he felt like he didn't want a renter to destroy it. And just his answers it showed me his objections, and it led me to have things that I could talk about, because a lot of people are nervous to rent out their house because they think renters are going to destroy something, but that's not true. It's that most renters that destroy things, almost every time I've talked to that property owner, they have no idea if they have renter's insurance. They didn't pull credit. They didn't do a background check. They didn't do a work verification. They didn't look at references. Like they did no application. They're just, oh, you can pay the rent. Great. Here you go. And so every time I've said that to people, they go, oh, that's so interesting. But then you kind of let them talk, because then he had really good ideas. And he said, we have a water district facility right behind us, and I know how much they make, and it's a really good income. I'd love to rent out the house next door to someone like that. I'm like, see, exactly. Now we're talking about investor loans and, this, and it's just, yeah.
It's like learning how to solve problems instead of just constantly succumbing to your objective, even as like a buyer, like, oh, I can't, or oh, it's too hard, or oh, it's annoying, or they're going to ruin my property. It's like getting over well, maybe you can just flip the script.
Well, I always like to ask. Yeah. I like to ask why a lot. So like when people are like, oh, it'd be too hard to buy right now. Oh, why?
Yeah.
I always like to ask why, because then there's a lot of people who they'll tell you something that's either really accurate or usually really inaccurate. Like, has anyone had someone recently that thinks it's a terrible time to buy and said that to you in one way or another? And what did you say back? Anyone?
I haven't had that, but it makes me think of a conversation you and I had about a guy who came to me about a mortgage. And, you know, once I get the income and look at it, and it's like, he doesn't really qualify for what he was aiming for. But the whole conversation in my mind is like, how can I start talking to people and encouraging them to stay positive instead of defeated? Because that's all the news ever does is talk about how bad everything is. And it's people need to sell when they have to sell, and they have to buy when they want to buy. It's like, what are you just turning it into like a don't give up, like keep trying, we can make a plan, we can figure out how to do it.
Like Nate said, with it is a long-term investment. So
Yeah. And it's like, if you want a house, if that's your goal,
yeah,
everybody wants to have their own house. Like, if you're going to live there for a long time, you know, who cares what the rates are?
Figure it out how to make it work.
Yeah. Make it make sense. You don't have any, anyway. I digress.
Yeah. I did have a nurse ask me this week, oh my goodness, are you guys so busy? We heard interest rates are dropping a lot this year.
Say yes, they absolutely said they're going to drop. No, what did you say?
I said, well, the feds initially came out and thought they were going to kind of drop interest rates. But with the recent inflation report came back that inflation is still high. And so they're thinking they're not going to be able to do that. So I just said they're probably.
Oh, well, they didn't say that.
So no, but they said.
But here's the good news, because if they did drop, now you're competing with a bunch of people. So it may be a good time to buy, because
Exactly.
Well, this nurse isn't buying. This nurse is not buying.
Yeah.
She was just making that. She was just wondering if I was busy.
Well, still, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Kelly Anderson.
it depends, yeah, what your goal is with each person. Because sometimes people will look at you as the apps. Like, I've had people refer me just because they thought that I was closing a ton of deals because I apparently post on social media a lot. And this is when I first got my license, but I really wasn't. They referred their parents to me. You still want to have that, yeah, like the hope, right? Yeah, I mean, you're right.
I didn't tell her they're going up. I said they're probably just going to kind of stay steady the same unless something major happens.
Yeah.
But right now, inflation is still kind of high.
Yeah, they said they're going to cut. Still, who knows if they will? It would probably be September, October, right before the election, obviously. And then to Nate's point, now I think I honestly think that now's a great time to buy, because when rates do drop, I remember 2021. It sucked. I hated it. Every client, I said, listen, we're probably going to write at least 10 offers on houses if you don't want to get screwed over. If you're fine getting screwed over, then okay, I'll tell you what you need to do to win this house. But otherwise, if someone offers something crazy, it's because for some reason they are like dead set on having that house. There will be another one and a good opportunity. But man, it was frustrating. And so I tell people all the time, like, I would rather buy now with rates high, knowing that rates are going to drop at some point in time. And as long as I'm okay with the monthly payment, then whatever. And then, from there, it's talking to people. Yeah. I've had quite a few conversations lately, because this is a good one that I think a lot of you.
Well, even when interest rates were low, remember, people were waiving and really important things. And I'd rather,
oh my gosh,
as a buyer, have that leverage.
No inspections.
Have that leverage right now.
No appraisal, no loan. Yeah.
I think it's important to remind people that, because retrospectively people think, oh man, it was so good back then. Well, every market has its drawbacks. And that was a huge drawback. And people are overseeing that now because they're just looking at the interest rate.
Only on the interest.
It's like, you have to bring that up. Be like, hey,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's not forget that this is what was happening at that time. And people had to, put in offers 30 grand over and do things that made them uncomfortable, shorten their inspection, or entirely waive it, which we did. It was stupid, but.
Plus, when rates drop, like actual Fed rates drop, think about most companies that borrow money are big companies looking to expand. So they're going to be able to expand more, which means more people have jobs, which means more people are looking to buy, which means more competition out there. the other thing that I think a lot of people are going to be getting with clients is you get someone who wants to buy, they have money or they don't have money to put down, but their monthly payment goal does not match with where interest rates are at. That's where I have had the most conversations, and I marry too, in that regard with purpose home loans. I think it's good to start to think about how you can plan things out with people. If they're not, I just talked to a guy who husband and wife with two 18-year-old boys living with them. So they need a 3-bed, 2-bath house. But I've had so many other conversations where it's a single individual or it's a young couple with one baby or whatever it is. And they just can't quite afford, or they don't want to be spending more than $2,500 a month, but they really just need a 2-bed, 1-bath. I would really start pushing. There are a lot of duplexes that come on the market, and you can use down payment assistance. And I've been telling people this for 2 units, which means either 2 houses or a duplex. You can do down payment assistance on it. You can live in one side, and that way the other side, you can either qualify for more because you use that income to offset the monthly payment, but also it helps you. And then in the future, if you keep increasing rents, you can really drive up the value yourself. And then that way, when you are ready to move on and upgrade to a house, you've got such an increase in value. I've noticed if I hear that initially about where their monthly payment goal is, and I know that it's not going to match up, and I present that, I'll even pull up Zillow while I'm on the phone with them and try to look up duplexes and be like, hey, check this one out, and send them. And honestly, I'm getting a lot more people really excited about it. Obviously, there's still less duplexes coming on the market, but there's all kinds of things that I think you could be doing to give people hope and excitement. I mean, Mary posted the video about how I think that Supreme Court ruling. So basically, all these government agencies are going to start freaking out because they know they've been making it so difficult for builders to build or anyone to do anything on their land. I mean, we're going through it with the farm where we're almost having to reach out to an attorney because the city of Lincoln is so ridiculous and they want to charge so much. It's unbelievable. I'm like, we're trying to sell flowers and let people pull up onto the parking lot and buy a bouquet of flowers. You're telling me that I have to spend, whatever. And so I think a lot of these government agencies are going to freak out because the Supreme Court said, hey, this is getting ridiculous. And it's the reason why we have a housing crisis. And our governor is big on, whether you like him or not, it's still just going to affect everything. He's big on appeasing that desire for more affordable housing. And so I think that the permit process is going to get easier. People are going to add more JDUs, ADUs, and be able to rezone and allow people to buy them as their own. I mean, there's going to be more inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something else too about this class. And I feel like the goal of this is the time to educate ourselves and learn how to talk about this stuff. And once you start, at least this is something I've recently discovered, the more I start to pay attention to the little things, you realize how much it's connected to the other. And when you get something you feel excited about, I felt really excited about this Supreme Court ruling and building. I had just talked to this woman who's building in Shingle Springs, and she was telling me she got hit with a nonsense fee of a traffic study fee when she's on a residential lot in a residential neighborhood. That's it doesn't make any, so you can get excited and get people to feel I think also you're on their side. And when they hire you, you're a team member. You're not just selling them something. You're helping them learn this stuff. You're helping them learn their rights or learn their options. I'm not trying to sell you on
proving your worth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's helping people figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
You can get a duplex. I'm not trying to sell you the duplex. I'm trying to help you figure out how to afford this payment if you want to get in.
Yeah.
And to give you the best return on investment long term.
And it's a good stepping stone too, because you renovate one side, you live in the other, do the same to the other. Now you have rental income, and then in 5 years, now when you buy your single family home, you have 2 rental properties right there. So you're starting your wealth journey.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you keep people excited, it's so funny how resourceful they'll get when they're excited. So Chase's listing, under appraised for 20 grand, and they said that they still needed a $10,000 credit to cover their closing costs. My listing in Yuba City, they said that they needed a $10,000 credit and their max loan amount was 10,000 less than what we're asking. Both of them, we pretty much said, hey, listen, we'll reduce the price, but we're not doing both. If you want the house, great. If not, we're going back on the market. Both figured it out. They both buyers, because I think that both agents had told us, you know, hey, I've been showing this client houses forever. They're so excited about this house. They're first-time home buyers. They're doing this and this. Both came back and said, okay, they talked to family members. They came up with the money. We're good to go. Both. So now Chase's is closing soon. Mine's closing next week. So,
Awesome.
but the thing is you got to get people almost excited in these brief conversations, because I feel like they get very resourceful. Like I've got someone who, she really wanted to do the California Dream for All. She just can't come up with the money. And I just went through a bunch of options with her and kind of expressed why it's not the best program for her. Because you lose you give away your appreciation, which is the purpose of owning a home. But she went through and she found a few options. So she came up with the money for the down payment and stuff like that. Here's the other thing I wanted to talk about too, because, you know, especially with a lot of these articles that we're reading and finding online, is there's always going to be a time when someone finds the same article and is going to ask you about it. So it's good to stay up to date with the news and kind of, you know, what's going on, not the news, but, you know, just anything that's happening. So with the NAR lawsuit, there are a lot of people who are going to ask questions about it. You know, you got to be prepared. And one of the guys that I kind of was in this mastermind group with, that I really like what he said, is he just said, oh, you know, when people say, oh, so you're not going to get 6% anymore. He said, well, we were never getting 6%, but it's nice because I get to prove my worth and I know that I'm worth 3%. And he just says that and just stops talking. And they, you know, and he shows them exactly, hey, this is what I do. And I think, you know, the more you get educated about a lot of this stuff and you're showing how much you understand about the market, you know, you don't say, oh yeah, rates are dropping, do you want to buy? You say, well, this is probably what's going to happen because this is what we're predicting. You know, when that NAR lawsuit comes up, you say, oh no, I'm worth 3%. I'm not someone who's just going to open the door and ask you if you want to write an offer. Like I'm your advocate here.
Something I wanted to add about the educational stuff. So one of the goals I set for myself for this year was, normally, you know, you get a million zillion emails from NAR, PCARs, like I just delete, like I don't even read them. But this year I'm like, no, I'm gonna open the emails, I'm gonna look through.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And it's like, I don't read everything, but I find that there are things going on that like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was happening. Oh, that's interesting. And it's like, you don't have to sit down hours a day
You're right.
to learn this stuff. It's just see what's happening. And then you'll find things that you're interested in. And then over time, it builds your knowledge base. And I feel like in the past few months, just doing simple stuff like that, like
that's a good idea.
Checking on the occasional article, seeing what like little new programs or new things are out there, PCAR education, like I feel way more confident than I did at the beginning of the year.
That's why I like recording things, you know, and posting it. Not that I have done it in a while, but it's nice because it's almost like you're practicing for that conversation with someone. But okay, for the sake of this class too, I'm trying to think, is there any objections anyone has been hearing lately or any comments from someone that they want to share and kind of talk about how they feel they could have, you know, like we've talked about, oh, I heard rates are dropping. Dylan, anything on your end that you've heard from your college friends?
Don't hear much from the college friends, but I'd say it's what I hear is about what we've talked about. I can't really think of anything else right now.
Okay. Vanessa, she might be busy with her kids. Or Olga or Adrian, whichever is on that call. It's gonna be Adrian.
It's you know, pretty much the same thing. People
both of us.
think it's unaffordable, and it's not just, you know, it's both the prices and the rates and the monthly payment, you know, because ultimately I think that's what people look at, their monthly rate and how affordable it is for them. So, and a lot of people who bought in like 2020, 2021, they feel really happy. They're like, oh, I bought it, 2 years ago and it was much cheaper and the rates were 2%. Now it's 8%, so yeah, kind of the same rhetoric,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, especially with some people, it depends, if I'm talking to someone and if it's just my neighbor and they're like, oh yeah, why would I ever sell? And someone taught me this a long time ago. Someone says, why would I ever sell? I would literally answer back, why would you ever sell? They say, no, really, because rates are much higher than when I bought. Why would I sell? I'm like, well, I'm not here to tell you whether you should sell. Do you want to sell? Why would you sell?
Yeah.
Was there something you're trying to change? And I think people start to realize, oh, if there's something I want to change, then great, I'll figure that out. But if there's not something I want to change, then fine. Yeah, I mean, stay here. No one's asking you to sell or not sell. But if you're saying that you're tired of, like, I had this past client that said, I don't know if I should sell or renovate my house. What do you think? And I'm like, well, why do you want to renovate your house? Why do you, or versus selling? And they say, well, the cost to renovate, I'm either going to have to take another loan out or I'm going to have to do this. But even then, I actually didn't realize how much I don't like the stairs in my house. And I just said, okay, well, how about we look at purchasing, and go that route. I mean, you're just trying to give people options. And I think it's the same if you were to get leads and show 20 people houses, 30 people houses, you're going to have one that's going to be interested in buying. It's the same thing, the same conversation with people about, hey, why don't you rent out your property now, buy another property? That way, at least you still get to keep your low interest rate and still take advantage of appreciation, and will help you buy something else if that's really what you're looking to do. Because let's say rates are blah, 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 and sometimes people will say, well, I don't have enough money saved for the down payment. There are so many loan programs out there with options for that. But I think that you're going to have that same conversation with 10 people, and you're going to get that one person who's going to say, you're absolutely right. I'm so sick and tired of these stairs, or I'm tired of, it's way too small. You know what? Even though it's a higher payment, I can handle it. Like, I've got one right now, the one in Yuba City, like they lost their child and they are like, we're not staying in this bleeping house. I don't care where the payments are at. We're somewhat high income earners. And so if that means we're paying more in interest, at least we get a tax deduction and it puts us in a lower tax bracket. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that as an option. That, yeah, I mean, it does put you, I mean, you have, was that a coworker? Kind of a coworker?
Which one?
The one that was looking for the tax benefit. She was thinking about a rental property.
Lisa,
Yeah. So same, she was like, I talked to my CPA. They told us we need to buy a property because we are not taking advantage of our tax deductions and we need to lower ourselves into a lower tax bracket. Like, we either need a much bigger house, which, because at the end of the day, my monthly payment might be more, but because I'm in a lower tax bracket, I'm netting more per month. I've had that conversation with a few people too. Not to say we all talk to a bunch of high income earners, other than those of you that work at the hospital. That's why also, it's probably good to build a following of, people in the tech industry, hospital industry, I mean, all kinds of those industries.
Well, yeah. It's, it's
The only buyers right now that are
well
seriously,
qualified.
they're seriously looking to buy, it's cash buyers. We have some of that. It's just we cannot find the right fit as of right now. But the ones that they are looking to finance, they're like terrified. I don't know if I can do $4,000 a month because I'm renting for $2,000. I said, yeah, if that works for you, keep on renting. So yeah, the monthly payment, I think especially for the first time buyers, it's a very tough pill to swallow. And the other thing that I wanted to say, because that we are on Zillow, so in May we're gonna have a year on Zillow. So looking back the first 6 months, the leads, the quality of the leads, I would say, and again, I'm a newer agent, right? I would say was 2 times better than the leads we had this year. Like all of the leads that I'm getting right now is just like, hey, you know, I got $20,000. I want to buy a 400,000 home and I want to be cash flow positive. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know what? If you find one of that, I want to buy. I'll buy it with you. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like two things with what you said. So, well, first, so you started in May of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So what I'm saying with this,
May is always going to be a hotter market. So I'm interested to see what happens in the next 6 months. If it's very similar to your first 6 months with the investment properties, because I'm a part of a couple different mastermind groups, and they're seeing this all over the nation. They're like, you know, there's a lot of people that own these multifamily or sometimes the single family, but they've owned these properties for so long that they're trying to sell them at cap rates that don't make sense. If a capitalization rate's at 6%, interest rates are at 7%, well, then I'm buying a property to lose money. I think that there's going to be a lot of them out there that you just got to submit the offers to, and where it makes sense, educate the agent. Because the other problem that we're dealing with a lot with those investment properties is you're getting agents who are just yes man, right? They're just, yeah, you want to sell it for this, let's do it. And it doesn't match. And so if you educate them and say, listen, look at this, I'm buying a property to lose money. I mean, if I have cash, it's a little bit different, but I mean, I'd rather give someone a mortgage at 8% than, you know, at that point, well, no, then you lose appreciation. But with a lot of investment properties, you really got to look at upside potential too. Obviously, you don't want to buy a property where you're losing money, because that would suck. But I think submitting the offer, explaining it to the agent so that you're teaching them how to educate their own client is how you're going to win with the investment properties. But
You're good at that.
it still is going to be a numbers game, because not all of them like, well, then we won't sell. I'm like, then take your duplex off the market, because it's been on for a year.
yeah. So with leads, with Zillow leads, only with that, we are noticing that, yeah, it's like, yeah, we get a bunch of leads, but they're not, it's, you know,
Yeah.
compared to last year. But yeah, maybe good
And
point.
another thing is that a lot of times people, because, you know, we say, hey, but, you know, if it's a first time home buyer, right, why don't you start with something small or even a condo or something like that? But many times people still want a big, beautiful, nice house in the nicest neighborhood, you know.
Yeah.
What they
That
are,
would be-
350,000.
I don't care where interest rates are at. That will never change. There
Exactly.
will always be those people. You're just like,
And they're so
oh,
excited.
you really want a 4-bed, 3-bath house in Folsom for
Exactly.
$400,000?
Okay, Rosewood, but
Yeah,
it has
with
to be-
no money, with no money down, it'll never change. Ever since I've been in the industry, we'll always have that. I mean, you never know what happens with people. I've had past clients that kind of thought that way, and then I don't know what happened. Just they got smarter or something, and they finally just came back. We're like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I've been watching values in this one neighborhood go up and up. I want to start with a condo, because whatever, my friend sold his condo and had so much equity. And so you never know. I mean, that's why I hate sayings, but the fortune is in the follow-up, right? The more you follow up, you know, you guys are building a huge database of leads from Zillow. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to transact after having them for 6 to 8 months.
Have you found any success, or do you ever talk to these clients that have unrealistic, especially first time buyers? You know, they want the big house, they want all these things. Like, okay, it's so much more than just your, like, it's more than just your payment, your monthly payment. Like, you're also increasing all your utilities. Everything is,
Exactly.
you know, the HVAC is all connected. To cool your house, it's going to cost you twice as much because your house is twice as big. You know, like, everything's going to stack up on the maintenance side too. Like,
So
you're
she
pushing
means
yourself.
convincing them to aim smaller.
Yeah, like convincing them that it's like,
Yeah, that's
It's
smart.
not-
That's a good idea.
as a first time home buyer, like, why do you want to put yourself in that position?
Yeah.
Why do you want to stretch yourself that
But-
thin? I mean, unless you can really afford it, then cool. But
Well, because many times they rent this, and when they see the payment, they're like, well, but it doesn't make sense. I'd rather, like rent it for 2,000, but I have enough space. So it's like different situations.
So, and also this example, this family specifically, they've been renting this house for 4 years or whatever. So we helped before we were agents. We helped their parents because they were like two parents, right, and two kids.
Yeah.
The parents moved out because we helped them buy, but we weren't agents. So
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, we took them to a new build and they were happy, and we didn't know many things, right? So
Yeah.
now kids wanted to buy with us. The problem is that their house, their lease agreement, is 4 or more years old. I don't know, 5 years old or so.
So they still have a good price.
Yeah, they have $2,000 for, I think, almost 2,000 square foot home in Roseville, and they want to move to the same home. And I said, that's impossible. You're comparing your lease that stayed in place for 5 years, it never went up, to you're paying right now whatever you paid 5 years ago. So yeah, a 5
well,
year
in that case,
house
sorry.
would have been $2,000 a month. If you
Yeah, I
were-
mean, well, I mean, with that, you could say the right thing to the wrong person, it'll never go through.
yeah, exactly. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
with them, I mean, I had someone say the same thing, and then and then like the next month, the landlord sold the house, wanted to sell the house, and so it's like, hey, well, this is, and I'm pretty sure I just said it. I don't even know what made me say it, but I was like, well, this is why you own versus rent, is you have the control. And they're like, oh, that's a really good point. And I mean, I've had people who I remember, which most of you have met them because they always come to a lot of our events. Krista and Josh, they had a little baby at the Easter egg hunt. They were renting this house in Natomas. It was pretty sweet. I remember going there and they had like a little moving away party or something like that. I really liked the house, and it was less. The monthly payment was still less than the payment for the house they bought. The house they bought needed a lot of work, but they were just so excited to own their house. And that, like, those are the people that you just have to work through and get to them. But they're the ones that are, I half said the right thing to them and they're just still excited to go buy. Yeah. But yeah, you never know when things change for people. You just kind of say, well, like you said, Adrian, it's like, well, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I mean, it's just not practical.
Well, I would argue and say, try to turn it into a positive and try to, if that's really what you want, like you still have time on your lease, you're in this for whatever, a couple more years, make a plan, figure out how much, maybe you could save more money, have a bigger down payment, and maybe you can get your monthly payment down.
True.
But
Good
don't,
point.
Yeah.
And not to change the topic, I wanted to answer a question earlier, but I didn't want to cut any of you off. So we when we started, we heard this one, so we copy and duplicate. Applied. So when somebody asks us, what do you do for a living? We wanted to have like a smart answer, but not to have it like a very long answer, to say something smart quick. And that's why we copied this. We help people create wealth through real estate for a couple of reasons. Because you could say as an agent, you could say that as a loan officer, you could say that as a builder, so this motto that we use, and you're free to copy, was because of that. Because even if you're gonna diversify your strategy and the way you're moving forward, you can always carry that with you. We help people create wealth through real estate.
So when you say that, what do people say back to you?
Like a lot of times when they say something back, it's actually what they're interested in. So then you can follow on that, oh, can you help us? Like, because we've been looking to buy a land, we've been looking to build. We had some issues with the bank. So actually one of the deals that I closed, we don't have a lot of experience on the sales side, right? So one of the deals that we closed, actually the person were like, yeah, we tried to buy real estate, but the bank, right? So whatever they say back to you that's exactly where they need their help. And then you identify that, and if you're qualified, right, you have the knowledge, you can actually you know.
Yeah. Very
Yes,
good.
so we actually help.
It's like an enticing, like,
Yes,
thing
so
to say.
you can take it however you want. You can use it, So I actually helped a couple buy their first home with exactly this scenario, and
Yeah.
they had issues with the bank, and I said I can help you with that bank. We shouldn't have an issue as long as you love the house, you're comfortable with the payment. We shouldn't have any issues. And they love the house, and I got them into. So from this discussion to making an offer, it was like 7 days away. I don't know if you believe, if it's, I know it's hard to believe. We had this discussion, and in 7 days from that day, we were in contract, and I don't know, like 30 days after we closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
use,
like that because
Uh-huh.
it sounds good, but it actually works.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's true.
Yeah, no, it's
It's
true.
gonna generate a question, or somebody's gonna tell you their pain point. I like it.
Yeah.
Yes. So this
Makes
way, even as a loan officer, you can use it even as a real estate agent, a builder, even if you're working in construction, whatever you do, you can use it. And I think it opens up a big discussion, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that's like, no one would not ask a follow-up question or make a comment to that, but it's not you giving this whole speech about, oh, yeah, I like it.
Cool.
All right, I think we're hitting the max time here.
Yeah.
Because I got to upload this to YouTube. Well, this is good. Yeah, I'd like to do this more often too, where we talk about a lot of this. I'm gonna actually stop the recording. Where we talk a lot about the different objections, because as the market changes, I have learned that you need to